Of the true journalists for my money covering the Tennessee Volunteers does it for a website called allfortennessee.com. There with the Fansided Network. He's not a fanboy, but he's always been a Vols fan. But, you know, when he's reporting, you can see his journalistic credibility. And I like that. I'm not one of these guys. I know it's like a common thing now. You should never cover the team you grew up rooting for, because the idea is you'll be too much of a homer. Well, I kind of don't think that's the case with Caleb Calhoun, all for Tennessee. And this is brought to you, of course, by Asian House, where you get 10% off if you go down there, Shops and West Market in Johnson City, on your way to Jonesboro, and right there on Market Street. You get 10% off if you mention my name for lunch, which begins at $5.99. Where to begin with? I guess the football season begins somewhat unofficially with the start of practice on Friday for the Tennessee Volunteers. You've been breaking down positions, and I saw you broke down today defensive line. Now, this could be as good of a place to start as any, because I was looking up stats, and for the last 10 years, Tennessee has not finished in the top 3 in sacks in any season since 2009. What's the status of the defensive line for the Tennessee Volunteers this season, in your opinion, Caleb Calhoun?
Well, I have to say that defensive line is the one position on the roster that we fully expect to see the ball take a step back on. I think that most analysts agree that pretty much every other position you would expect some sort of improvement, because you got a lot of starters back, and Jerry Pruitt has recruited well in certain areas. I mean, even if the offensive line is horrendous, a horrendous offensive line would still be better than last year's offensive line. So I think you expect improvement everywhere else. But defensive line, I mean, this is the big concern. It was the one consistent strength of the Vols last year, and it just happened to be the one unit that lost all of its starters. Tennessee, let's call it what it is, they don't beat Auburn without Alexis Johnson, Kyle Phillips, and Shai Tuttle getting a ton of pressure all day in that game. And that defensive touchdown was caused by the pressure from the defensive line. All 3 are gone, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is one of the reasons the Vols would get blown out a lot is in the second half of games, those guys would get tired. You have to rotate your defensive line more than other positions, and they couldn't really rotate because they didn't have a lot of depth there. Well, those guys that weren't able to provide depth last year are now expected to be starters this year. And, of course, you know, Jerry Pruitt did add a couple of junior college transfers. He's hoping to get Aubrey Solomon to be eligible to play this year.
Sure.
And I got to tell you, whether or not those JUCO players come on or Aubrey Solomon's eligible to play, that could define the whole season for the Vols.
That's precarious, to say the least. But nevertheless, I'm reading a lot of positive things. You've been writing a lot about Jared Guarantano, and I am reading a lot of people. They're looking at that 12-3, that 12 touchdown passes against 3 picks. And I do admit I like quarterbacks that don't throw a lot of interceptions. I mean, I am maybe the only Pittsburgh Steelers fan that really, really likes Neil O'Donnell, because he's the second least likely quarterback in NFL history to throw a pick. He just happened to throw one that wasn't in the best circumstances years ago. But anyhow, the point that I wanted to make here is not reminisce, but rather say you've been writing a lot, and a lot of people have, under the rush. He was under the rush so much last year, but, he was one of the better statistical quarterbacks, say, from the pocket, if you could protect him. Question is, Trey Smith up in the air. How much improved do you think the O-line will be for the Tennessee Volunteers this year?
Well, I'm almost certain if Phil State thing is going to be improved. How much, I don't know, because there is, I mean, if you're broke, $1 makes you a heck of a lot richer. I mean, it's kind of like the offensive line last year. You know, they were so bad that it's just a little bit of improvement could work wonders. So I don't know how much they're going to be improved, because a lot of it depends on, Wanya Morris showed himself as a freshman in the spring. He appeared to step up. And also, Darnell Wright has a ton of hype coming in as the 5-star tackle. If he lives up to that hype immediately, and then if Trey Smith returns, okay, you got something to work with at tackle right there. The other area of improvement that you could see is, Ryan Johnson spent the first half of the year really just developing on the fly at center because Brandon Kennedy got hurt in the opener. Kennedy's back at center now, to move back over to guard, where he's more of a natural blocker. So those are a couple of things to suggest that it's possible the offensive line is significantly improved. I don't think it's going to be great by any stretch, really only because I can't see last year's line all of a sudden being great, but I could see it being decent enough for a running game to develop and for Garantano to be able to have time to throw the ball. But that's best case scenario is it's decent. I think worst case scenario is bad, but better than last year. But there are a lot of, I guess you could say, cautiously optimistic signs for the Vols, considering that Trey Smith has still been practicing. They sound like they expect him to go this year, even though they haven't confirmed it yet. At least that's how Jeremy Pruitt hinted at it during SEC Media Days. And then there's a Wanya Morris showed out as a freshman in the spring, and there's a lot of hype behind Darnell Wright. So there's a lot of things working in their favor to be better. There's just, I don't know how much yet.
This is a team that is so up in the air and has so many question marks and can go so, either way, that sort of thing. But let's talk a little bit of recruiting. I mean, there's, and again, I don't like to put a lot of stock in recruiting. I think you find out how your recruiting class did about 4 years down the line. However, you wrote a piece about 24 hours ago that Vols fans should not worry about 4-star safety Antonio Johnson's decommitment. And also Tennessee, 2 days ago, they got a commitment right out of the South Carolina Gamecocks' backyard in suburban Columbia, a wide receiver for 2020 named Jalen Hyatt. Now, we talked about how immediate JUCO transfers are needed for the defensive line. But yeah, if we can look a year ahead and all this, why do you not think that Antonio Johnson's decommitment should worry Tennessee fans?
So I think it shouldn't worry Tennessee fans because defensive back is the one position where Jerry Pruitt has really built a solid foundation on for the future. He recruited well at offensive line, to be fair. He recruited better at offensive line this past year than defensive back, but the offensive line was in such dire straits that was more need than anything. Defensive back, he got Trayvon Flowers last year who, after he came back from his injury, he showed signs towards the end of the year, and the coaches have loved him. And you're right, you and I have talked in the past about recruiting services being ridiculous with their rankings, and all signs point to Trayvon Flowers could have been a 4-star or 5-star, but because he didn't go to the spring camp because he decided to play baseball, they demoted him to a 3-star, which is ridiculous.
You look at guys who, were being recruited, let's say, FCS, all of a sudden a named school says, you know what, he's a diamond in the rough, suddenly they become 3 stars. Hunter Renfrow was a walk-on, a 2-star. He supposedly 5th-round pick of the Raiders who caught the game-winning touchdown pass for Clemson national title game 2016-17 is now lighting it up in Raiders camp. I mean, what do these things, say? I mean, Baker Mayfield was a walk-on, please. I mean, that sort of... Anyway, please, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. My apologies here. But please continue.
No, it's okay. I agree, yeah. And I think that Trayvon Flowers has one spot locked up at safety. Jalen McCullough already made a splash in the spring game as another safety. That's a couple of guys that you'd have depth built for. Pruitt has about 5 other safeties on top of those guys committed for the future. And this is where you say, okay, well, 2 or 3 of them were 4-star recruits on top of that. So you have to assume that at least after Nigel Warrior leaves this year, at the very worst, for the next through 2021, Jerry Pruitt already can go 4 deep in the secondary, or at safety, I mean. And so I think that if there was ever a position where the Vols could afford to lose somebody, it would be at defensive back. I wouldn't say that about any other position. It was bad when they lost that edge rusher about a month ago. They could not have afforded that. They did not need that. But losing a 4-star safety, I think, is one, because safety, defensive back in general, right now, given the bodies that he's built up there, is one position that the Vols could afford to lose. It's not ideal. You don't want to lose them because you want as many options as possible, but it's not devastating that they did lose them.
Well, I'll even go this far. I mean, you're talking about a safety, and to me, when you're talking about recruiting a safety is a guy not big enough to play linebacker, and maybe a step too slow to play corner. So what are we whining about here? I mean, I can withstand some, you only got some 3-star safeties. Big deal. Tell me about the quarterbacks you're bringing in. Tell me about the running backs. I mean, that's my opinion and such. Caleb Calhoun, allfortennessee.com, coming back after this. Happy Box Meal, featuring plentiful appetizers.